Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's high noon central, and I'm your Huckleberry, Jeffrey Daugherty, coming to you live from an undisclosed location somewhere deep in the heart of American flyover country. This is a Christian Whistleblower channel, and I love the smell of blasphemy in the morning. Smells like victory, and we're here today to give you some more victory. And strangely enough, I'm having my first cup of coffee somehow at high noon central. I don't get it. But let me tell you, it is good. Lots of great stuff coming up today. You'll want to stay tuned. And we've got a lot to drop on you here today. And man, oh boy. Thank you, Rhonda, watching the series on Charles Manson. That was a good one. I'm going to talk to you today about the two witnesses of the book of Revelation identified, and is not who you would think that it is. I don't think it's even close to anything you would have thought of it. And I owe my new friend, Joseph Atwill, a debt of gratitude for starting me down this path of thinking. And if you remember, Joseph Atwill was on this channel a week or so ago, 2 weeks maybe, talking about his book, Caesar's Messiah. And if you remember Caesar's Messiah, and if you haven't read that book, you should. It is the story that shows that the Romans invented Jesus. Now, whether you believe that or not, and the more I read it, the more I study it, the more I go to Atwill's sources, the harder it is to come to any other conclusion. Caesar's Messiah is powerful, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm going to submit to you today a thought process that I think is 100% right. However, it is a tiny bit speculative in my estimation. I think what I've put together proves that I'm right without a doubt. However, I have to say there might be a wee bit of speculation left, but I'll let you decide. This is so important. So Joseph Atwill wrote Caesar's Messiah, the Roman plot to invent Jesus. So if Atwill is right, and the Romans invented Jesus, then the Romans also invented the rest of the narrative, correct? And if the rest of the narrative is invented, if Jesus is invented, then the rest of the narrative is also invented, including the two witnesses. The two witnesses would be a Roman invention, but listen, the two witnesses would also be a Roman invention, or at least a Jesuit one, but it would be the two witnesses of Rome, the two witnesses of Roman victory, the two witnesses of Rome and its wildly, fantastically successful psychological operation over religion in the West. So if Atwill's right and Caesar's Messiah invented Jesus, then the rest of the narrative is also invented. The two witnesses would also be invented. They would be a Roman invention, and they would be the two witnesses of Rome. And we should be able to find somewhere in the scripture something that backs this up. What if we could find something that backs it up with such amazing specificity that it would knock your socks off? And if you don't have socks on, it would knock the calluses off the bottom of your feet. And if you don't have calluses on the bottom of your feet, it'd make your ankles knock together. And if you don't have ankles, I don't know what would happen. But if the two witnesses are a Roman invention, and if the two witnesses are the two witnesses of Rome, and if they are written about in the scripture, who are they? And how, ladies and gentlemen, could we find them? Well, that's what you've got me for. Your friendly neighborhood Christian whistleblower. That's what you've got me here for, to do the dirty work. I know some of you think I just come in, throw some product in my hair, and sit down in front of this computer screen with either my day glasses on or my night glasses. Have you noticed? Jay got me the great night ones, the red ones, but you wear those things all day and they do make you tired. They're supposed to make you tired. So I got the day glasses and the night glasses. So what two dudes pioneered this, and we'll give a shout out to Wayne, this monumental religious mind coitus that Rome has fostered upon us? What two individuals put this together? Well, if you read my book, Apostle Paul Antichrist, you would see what I think is pretty good evidence that it was Paul and Nero. Let's look at this. If you remember in Acts chapter 19, Paul was waging war on the goddess Diana. Paul started a riot in Ephesus that almost got him killed and would have got him killed if it weren't for the Roman army, the Roman legion saving him. And that's where Paul's cover was blown. There's no way that a Jewish prophet gets to speak to a Colosseum full of Greek people. And when they rush him, the Roman army protects him and then allows him to address that entire Colosseum in a foreign language. He addressed them in a language that the Romans didn't know, and they stood there and let him do it. Come on, folks. Paul was a spy of Rome. They were there to watch him, and they got him out of that jam. But he was there coming against Diana, the goddess. In Galatians, the church was fleeing him because they said he was doing something wicked. In Ephesus, they convicted him of being a false apostle because he was doing something wicked. Paul shows us his clear anti-feminine mentality. He's not only against the sacred feminine, he's against the unsacred feminine. He's against all you ladies, and not in a good way. Paul was anti-woman, anti-sacred femininity, anti-sacred sexuality, anti-everything good and honest and true and pure. That's who Paul was. And I forgot to do this, so I'm just have to do it right now. I want to read you something that talks about the kind of stuff that went on in Nero's court. And I don't know if I can find this really quickly, but I'll do my best. The kind of stuff that went on in Nero's court. Nero, of course, at this time was the Caesar, the emperor of Rome. We'll type in the sordid activities of Nero's court. This guy was so whacked, he would go out at night with some bodyguards. He'd go out at night and he would just kill bums, kill them, slash them. He was a nutcase. Nero and his court, and it's in my book, Apostle Paul Antichrist, and you can look it up. The things that he did they beggar description. The sexual debauchery, beggar description. The abuse of children. He would put little kids, hey, little kids, dress up in this costume of a sheep, and everybody go, bah, bah, bah. And they would come crawling out of their cages dressed like sheep, and then he would release wild animals on them. Nero was renowned for having sex with children, for having sex with anybody he wanted to, and having the deepest, darkest, most perverted sex. Of course, the Christians burnt down Rome because Nero put them up to it. These are the kind of things that happen in Nero's court. So that goes to my suggestion in the other series that I finished up and maybe just started, that Paul probably with Nero originated the sacrament of child rape and sacrifice within the Roman Catholic and Roman Protestant churches. Nero's court activities beggar description. And think about it. That is some hardcore mafia stuff, Rocky. Think about it. Nero, bloodthirsty, a champion of sodomy, a champion of sexual perversion, a champion of sadomasochism. Paul and he, good friends. Could you think of two better individuals, two more likely individuals to help craft a religion that would have as one of its central sacraments sacramental sodomy? I can't think of it. But Jeff, how could this be? Remember, you got to remember this. Historically speaking, if he was real, Paul was in Jerusalem 30 years longer than Jesus. He had plenty of time and plenty of support to firm up his beliefs and get his thing going. More connections between Paul and Nero. Paul was taught by a person named Athenodorus. Athenodorus had a protege named Seneca. And while Paul was in Tarsus being tutored by Athenodorus, Nero was in Rome being tutored by Seneca. Well, one day when Paul was a student at the University of Tarsus, a great learning center, Seneca came to Tarsus and brought Nero with him. And that's when Nero and Paul visited. That's when Nero and Paul met. And just to make it really weird, Paul had a girlfriend who was the daughter of the high priest. Her name was Poppaea. And Paul had planned to leave Jerusalem as soon as possible, go travel with her. She wanted to see the world. But then Paul was offered to be the next high priest, and he told her, we're staying in Jerusalem. And Poppaea said, no, we're not. I want to see the world. So she broke Paul's heart, which goes a long way towards explaining Paul's mentality towards women. And she ran off to, wait for it, she ran off to Rome to work in the theater. So Paul sends a letter to his good friend Nero. Please watch over Poppaea while she's in Rome. And Nero did watch over her. He watched over her so well that he married her. And she's the one that was pregnant when Nero did those dastardly things to her that we won't even talk about. Nero and Paul, as close to friends as anything that any relationship those two ever had, both of them working to craft and combine this religion that has taken over the world, at least in my opinion. That's just the anecdotal. That's just the historical. That's just the evidence that demands a verdict from history. Paul was Saul. He was a Roman citizen who was a Jew. His Jewish name was Saul. His Roman name was Paul. So, what do you say we go to the scriptures? Jeff, that sounds very interesting. Sounds very fascinating, but, you know, it's just your opinion. You can't prove any of it. Well, buckle your seatbelt. Please keep your hands and feet inside the car at all times. And hold on, because we're about ready to take you on a scriptural roller coaster ride, the likes of which you've likely never been involved in before. Like Jack Nicholson said in the original Batman, wait till they get a load of me. Y'all ready? Because like Heath Ledger said in his Batman, here we go. The two witnesses. Revelation 11:1. And there was given to me a reed likened to a rod. And the angel stood and said, rise, measure the temple of God and the altar and them that worship therein. So if the two witnesses were Nero and Paul, then this is a Roman rendition of two witnesses, and it's a Roman rendition of their victory. So what he's saying here is, here's a measuring rod. Go and measure the temple. What does measure mean here? It means to measure out. Ooh. Mete out. Ooh, it doesn't mean just measure it. It means give them what they deserve. Give them what they deserve. Give who what they deserve? The temple itself, the altar, or the whole idea of blood sacrifice. See it? And even that, the people worshiping, the people doing the actual reverence, giving it, going down on their knees, worshiping. So what we're saying here is that the angel said, measure the temple, measure the altar, measure the people worshiping. They have been weighed in the balance and found wanting. Remember that? Daniel chapter 5, verse 27. Mene, mene, tekel, upharsin. You have been weighed in the balances and found wanting. They had a shot. The message of the Christ, whether it came from a guy or many guys and girls, they had a shot to receive the message of the Christ, to love themselves, to love their neighbors, to realize their divinity, their sovereignty, their freedom. They had a shot. But now it was time for them to get what they deserved. The temple was measured. The altar was measured. Those worshiping in the temple at the altar were measured. And guess what? They came up short because the temple was given to the Gentiles to be trod under for 42 months. Boy, this is where it really gets deep, ladies and gentlemen. This is where it really gets deep. So the temple, the great temple in Jerusalem, has been given up. Given up. Literally, given up. Given up by who? The protection of any divinity. Given up to who? The nations. Given up to the heathens. Given up to the Gentiles. And they will trample upon the city 42 months. How many of you know your history? Who conquered the Jerusalem temple? I'll wait. It was the Romans. And oh yeah, by the way, who was Caesar when they did it? I'll wait again. Nero. And they'll trample upon the city 42 months. This is so important, ladies and gentlemen. The Romans took Jerusalem. Nero was Caesar. And they did it for 42 months. Now, every Bible scholar like L.A. Marzulli knows that 42 months means 3.5 years, right? No, wrong. It doesn't. What you have to do is you have to look at the actual words. What does 40 mean? Okay, 40. And it's also a variant for this word, which is 40 or 4. It could be 40 or it could be 4. It's a modified form of deca, which is 10. It could be 40, it could be 4. Tesseris, 4. It could be either way. Only one way it makes sense, and another way it doesn't make sense. So let's just say it was 4. Watch what I found. If it is 4, but it's not just 4, it's 4 and 2. So it would be 4.2. 4.2 months. If this says 4.2 months instead of 42 months, guess how long the Roman siege of Jerusalem lasted? It lasted from the 14th of April to the 8th of September in AD 70. Do your math while I drink some coffee. That's 4.2 months. If I had a mic, I would drop it. I don't want to drop that one. It's too expensive. And I'm just getting started. If this is a Roman, pat themselves on the back, poke fun at us, show us how smart they are, they're doing a hell of a job because they just nailed that one, cousin. They just nailed that one, cousin. In true Caesar's Messiah, Joseph Atwillian form, they just nailed that. The Romans are going to tear your shit down, and they're going to trample on it for 4.2 months, which is exactly what history showed. And I just showed you that word at its base does mean 4. Oh, hold on, cousins. I'm just getting started. I am just getting started. So they'll tread under. So let's just say, let's read it as if it is Nero and Paul. So the Romans are going to come and destroy your city. And then I'm going to give power to my 2 witnesses. I'm going to give power to the thing that my 2 witnesses started, to what Nero in Rome started. And I'm going to give them power to prophesy for 203 score days. What does prophesy mean in this verse? I'm going to give them power to prophesy, to foretell, to tell forth, to teach, to rule, to lord it over, to be the big shots. But here's the amazing thing. For 1,260 days. 1,260 days. Well, 1,260 days, that's 1,260 days, right? That's 3.5 years. That's the future tribulation. No, it's not, Marzulli breath. That's called reading into the text. What does it say? What does it say? It says it'll be 1,000 plus 200 plus 60. If you add that up, and of course we use the year-day theory that is popular in Bible prophecy, because remember, the Romans are working us. If you add that up, they prophesied, they ruled, they spoke, and if you do the math, that brings you to 1466. What happened in 1466? The first Bible was printed in Germany, and Martin Luther was born. What? What? Jeff, are you kidding me? The Romans destroyed Jerusalem. They're there 4.2 months, just like it says. Paul and Nero's religion reigns till 1466, when the Bible and Luther is born. And during this time, you couldn't beat these guys. Everybody fought them. They died. They brought the plagues. They brought blood upon earth. And when they finish this testimony, somebody comes out of the bottomless pit and makes wars against them and kill them. Makes war against them and killed them. Luther started the Protestant Reformation. You can say rhetorically that the Protestant Reformation killed Roman Catholicism, or at least it looked like it brought the end of unquestioned Roman Catholic reign. It brought the end of Roman Catholic reign. And then people were so happy they let Roman Catholicism, Nero and Paul, lie in the streets of that city, which is spiritually called Sodom in Egypt. It's a spiritual thing. They let their bodies lay there for 3 days and a half. Sorry, the cottonwoods are killing me. They let them lay there for 3 days and a half. This can also be translated half 3 days. I'll show that to you, but why don't you do it yourself on Bible Hub? It can also be translated half 3 days. And if it was half 3 days, or actually it'd be half 3 days, we're talking about years, half 3 years, then you've got the exact amount of time that the Protestant Reformation lasted. And if we bring it into the future, here's a nice warning from Rome. The second woe is past, and behold, that third woe comes quickly. That third woe, that third temple is coming quickly. What did I write down here? Revelation 13:3. Must have been important if I wrote it down. Oh, yeah, I know what it is. And I saw one of the heads as it were wounded to death. And this means wounded by a sword. The sword of the Spirit, the word of God. Paul and Nero's religion wounded by the sword of the word. But, oh my gosh, after the Protestant Reformation, they launched the anti-Reformation, and the wound was healed. All the world wonders after the beast, and now you got Protestants, sons and daughters of the Protestant Reformation, like L.A. Marzulli, preaching Jesuit doctrine, preaching Paul's doctrine, preaching Nero's doctrine. The whole world is wondering after this beast that was dead. But the deadly wound was healed, and now you've got people that claim to be Protestants, preaching, teaching, making lots of money off of Jesuit doctrine, Catholic doctrine, Pauline doctrine, Neronian doctrine. Wow. That is some deep stuff. That is some powerful stuff. That is some amazing stuff, ladies and gentlemen. If Joseph Atwill was right, and I think he was, then it looks very, very likely to me from both a scriptural and a historical standpoint that the joke goes on and that Paul and Nero are the two witnesses of Revelation. And people like Marzulli and those that listen to him continue to look like first-class idiots because they won't recognize the truth. Their ears are so itching. They're making so much money. They're having so much fun that they won't allow the reality of Scripture to modify their beliefs and teachings. Can't believe it, folks. The two witnesses of the book of Revelation identified, not who you would think, ladies and gentlemen. Not who you would think. I'll run through the chat room real quickly. Probably don't want to, but I will do it. Let's see. A lot of talk about coffee. Really, guys? They teach God is love unless you piss him off. That's not love. Very well put. The truth is out there. You got to dig. Absolutely. It's amazing to dissect the Bible and find the gems of truth. Yes, it is. So sorry about power being shut off. I'm still powerful, bro. Let's see. Old Testament's not even the real history of Jerusalem. No, it's not. Cousins, all roads keep taking us back to Rome. Yes, they do. Paul was the first Antichrist. Absolutely. Rocky is a legend on any channel. Why destroy the love and respect of females? Because the females were running the show, Chrissy. And we can't find our fullness until we embrace sacred femininity, and they were shutting it down. Plus, they believe in the golden rule. He who has the gold makes the rules. They want to have everything and run it themselves. I feel dirty forever associating with the Christian church. Me too. Jeff's peeling away those layers. I'm crying tears of joy. Thank you, Mark Center Saint. Romans, Temple, Nero. This is interesting stuff. There's got to be somebody here that took me to task. Information 11.3, interesting, yep. 13 is a female goddess number. I didn't know that. Very interesting. The Romans created what is now the Bible and killed Jesus. They invented Jesus, infinite. This is the second time I've heard that Paul was the first Antichrist. Please explain where I can start to find this information. Angel, fiery petals. Google the New Testament in chronological order and read it in chronological order, and you will see it. No problem. There's so many dots that make their own universe. Females were oracles. Indeed. Well, ladies and gentlemen, there you go. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. I believe I've identified the two witnesses of the book of Revelation, both historically and scripturally. And that's some good stuff right there, cousins. That's worth the price of admission. If you think I'm dangerous, you better subscribe and keep an eye on me because I'm just getting started. I really am just getting started. If you like what I teach and don't want to miss anything, please subscribe because we are just getting started. Go to my website, jeffreydaugherty.com. I sell these bracelets, which will put you in perfect balance, homeostasis, and allow you to get yourself together spiritually. I'm also setting in a fluffy, focused life force energy, high consciousness field. Both of those are on my Shoot. On my website, upper right-hand corner, the Cottonwoods, man. We want you to ask questions. We want you to question answers. We want you to guide your own spirit. We want you to master your own ascension. We want you to be your own guru. We are, ladies and gentlemen, the last generation of real humans, and we can be the next generation of new gods. Everything we want to be, everything we're meant to be, is ours if we dare to unindoctrinate ourselves.